It creeps and glides and slides across the floor, oozes under a door, do 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 do. And I can't use the real song because I'll get hit with a fucking copyright infringement. But anyway, welcome back to 42nd Street, Pete's Grindhouse Halloween extravaganza. And like I said, we're going to cover some oozy creatures today. And first oozy creature is 1958's The Blob. Not the white blob that's crawling under my desk thinking I dropped something. Get off my feet! Yeah. 1959's The Blob, starring Steve McQueen as maybe the world's oldest teenager. Maybe he beat Frankie Avalon out for that. I don't know. But anyway. This is the one, it's a cult classic. A meteorite crashes while, Steve and his girl are making out. And this hobo, played by Olin Hallen, goes over and, of course, has to poke the thing with a stick and holds the stick up with what looks like a huge booger on the end of it, and then it covers his arm. So, of course, Steve and his girl find him, rush him to the hospital. They don't know what's going on. Eventually, this intergalactic fiend absorbs the whole guy, eats the doctor. People are disappearing. The cops don't believe him, yada, yada, yada. They talk to the school principal, and the whole thing culminates in a movie theater, where basically it eats the projectionist and starts pouring out of the slots where the projector is and dumping on the crowd. So now everybody's like getting chased by this thing, and Steve and his girlfriend are trapped in a deep freeze, and then they find out that when this thing tries to creep under the freezer door, it sort of backs off. It don't like the cold. So basically, they grab every fire extinguisher in town, and it was a huge cheer when the principal of the school broke the window to the door and let them in. So they basically zap the thing with fire extinguishers, freeze it, and it ends with basically whatever is left of the blob being parachuted down into the Antarctic. With a question mark at the end, because Robert Harris was really good at leaving these things wide open. Well, they did leave it wide open for a sequel, directed by none other than Larry Hagman, Jr. from Dallas. And of course, it starred a lot of Larry Hagman's buddies, Burgess Meredith and people like that, which were basically guest blob food. In this one, Godfrey Cambridge brings it back from the Antarctic and thaws a piece of it out. And of course, it eats his dog, eats him, goes on a fucking rampage, eats a whole bowling alley. But here's the thing. I had seen this at a drive-in back in the day with something called 11 Harrow House or something like that. And seeing it at a drive-in, okay, as cheesy as it was, it sort of worked. But being restored on a Blu-ray, you can actually see how cheap the effects are. So I went to see it. I'm really not a fan of the second movie because it's not that good. But the year after The Blob came out, and you know how Italian cinema is notorious for copycatting things, 1959, Caltiki, the Immortal Monster, was released on an unsuspecting public by United Artists, or Allied Artists rather, brought in as an import, Angela-sized credits, whatever. It opens up basically with this guy staggering through the ruins, screaming the mummy, whatever. It's some archaeological expedition. So anyway, they're looking for this missing guy. They got footage of, the camera where he was being attacked. You see the camera jerking back and forth, yada yada. So they figure that he's in this lake under the idol of the god Caltiki, or goddess Caltiki, or whatever the fuck she was. Anyway, so this one skin diver, Bob, goes in and doesn't find the guy they're looking for, Elmer, but sees a lot of gold and shit scattered on the floor of the cavern. So he comes up and he says, I didn't find Elmer, but I found this, want to go back down? They said, no, whatever. So he's down there, he's scooping up all the stuff in a bag where he hears this, there's this sound, and all of a sudden his eyes bug open and something's definitely attacking him, pulling him under. So they yank him to the surface and peel off his frogman mask, and underneath is a skull stripped of all its meat, the eyes hanging out, the teeth and shit like that. Now Caltiki is coming out of the lagoon, or whatever this thing is, and one of the scientists, Max, wants to grab the bag of gold, but trips and his arm is engulfed by Caltiki. Well, the other scientist chops off the hunk of Caltiki that's holding his arm, and they get out of the cavern, and this thing's coming out, and the scientist drives a truck full gasoline cans into it and blows it up. Anyway, they take the poor scientist back to the hospital where his face is pretty much marred by this thing. And they actually show this. They peel the Caltiki thing off his arm, exposing a skeletal arm, which they leave on him. That scientist actually is played by Gerard Hayter, who, if you looked it up, you'll find out that he was in Duck You Sucker, a.k.a. Fistful of Dynamite, and a bunch of other spaghetti westerns back in the day. He's the only one of the cast that I recognize coming out of this. Of course, he has a girlfriend, this maid, who's sort of enamored with him, and he has a holdover. So, being eaten by a little bit by Caltiki, he loses his mind, kills a nurse, and escapes from the hospital, still with the skeletal hand. He actually has the hots for the other doctor's wife, but isn't telling his girlfriend that. So, anyway, they've placed the weird part of Caltiki in a glass jar. Some of it's in a hospital, some of it's in this guy's house. And the thing is, they find out that this thing is going to be rejuvenated when this comet passes close to the Earth. So when the comet passes close to the Earth, Caltiki starts to grow and split in disgusting little fucking ways, taking over the house and knocking over a lot of furniture. Now, Max, the scientist who's gone crazy, has been hiding in the back of the house, exposes himself, tells the doctor's wife he's going to kill the doctor and take her for himself, when he hears this thump at the door. His girlfriend comes in, he basically stabs her, turns around and is engulfed by Caltiki. And this is where it gets really grim, because he is sucked in, and then a ghoulishly chattering skull splattered with blood is spit out. Now they're trying to hide all over the house as the whole friggin' yard is full of little Caltikis. They bring out the army. Of course, this is all miniatures. It's burning up and things like that. Eventually, Caltiki is destroyed. Now, the backstory on this was, okay, this definitely was not a fucking film a kid should see. But I used to spend 2 weeks out of the summer up in Massachusetts in Stoughton with my godmother. And I was watching this thing, and it was a kid's showcase, actually, with this, little weird puppet horror host who had Caltiki. Okay, so now we're watching this. Is another question of nobody was watching what we were watching. The other backstory is that Caltiki was supposedly going to be directed by Ricardo Frida, but Ricardo passed over the directorial reins to Mario Bava. So this was basically Mario Bava's first film, and has all those little touches, the angles, the shadows and light, all the cool shit that would lead up into more stuff like Black Sunday, Black Sabbath, and other things that he did. I don't know if this is available. Actually, it is available. Arrow DVD put it out in the Italian version and the US version, the dub version. So definitely worth a look. Definitely worth checking out. Both films. One's an alien invader and one's a resuscitated god. So yeah, they're definitely worth checking out, especially Caltiki, because like I say, Caltiki is a little bit over the top for a 1950s horror film. I'll tell you that, as far as gore and things like that. So anyway, a couple more days, we're there. So tune in tomorrow as we will address the zombie situation. So until then, thanks for subscribing, thanks for tuning in. Above all, stay safe, and we'll catch you on the flip side.